For centuries, humans were known across the galaxy as the Deathworlders. This name wasn't meant to insult, they earned it honestly. Earth, their home, was a dangerous place, filled with fierce storms, unpredictable climates, and creatures that could kill with ease. But instead of making humans weak, these challenges shaped them into clever, resilient, and surprisingly adaptable beings. Other species often looked at humans and underestimated them. They were tough, yes, but peaceful. Humans seemed more interested in solving problems than fighting. For many years, the galaxy had seen humans as predictable. They traded fairly, they negotiated calmly, and they rarely broke any agreements. Ambassadors from countless worlds came to Earth to witness this strange mixture of toughness and friendliness. Scientists were fascinated by humans' creativity, their ability to survive in harsh conditions, and the way they built communities. Some even called humans the puzzle species, because they acted in ways other civilizations could not fully understand. Humans could endure extreme heat and cold, survive in environments where machines failed, and adapt to dangers that would have ended other species quickly. Despite all this, humans never flaunted their strengths. They did not show off their technological advances or their strategic skills. They quietly developed their capabilities, improving their fleets, refining their systems, and training their people. Other species sometimes wondered why humans seemed to hold back, choosing cooperation over confrontation. It was as if humans had made an unspoken rule. No one would take them seriously unless they first proved themselves in the right way. Then, one quiet era, small changes started to happen. They were subtle at first. Observers from distant systems noticed that human fleets were being upgraded in secret. These ships looked ordinary on the outside, but their engines, shields, and sensors were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Scientists and spies tried to study them, but humans were careful. They avoided unnecessary attention. They didn't boast, and they didn't threaten. Instead, they continued trading and attending council meetings, all while quietly preparing for something no one could guess. Along with the fleet upgrades, humans began sending encrypted transmissions across deep space. These messages were unreadable to anyone without specific codes. Alien analysts tried to decode them for months, but humans were always one step ahead. The transmissions seemed to contain scientific research, advanced calculations, and maps of unknown systems. Some wondered if humans had discovered new forms of energy or new ways to travel through space faster than previously thought. But no one could be sure. Humans remained calm and polite during every inquiry, giving no hint that they were preparing for anything more than the normal growth of a peaceful civilization. Meanwhile, the humans' behavior at councils and interstellar meetings began to shift slightly. Their usual cheerful openness was replaced by cautious, measured speech. When asked about certain decisions, human representatives replied with careful explanations or simply stated that the matter was under consideration. Other species noticed the change, but could not understand its cause. They debated endlessly, theorizing that perhaps humans had discovered a hidden threat, or that they had simply grown tired of endless negotiations. Whatever the reason, it became clear that humans were no longer the same as before. Rumors began to circulate across trading hubs, space stations, and research outposts. One whispered story claimed that a human fleet had entered a nearby system without declaring its presence, moving silently and observing every detail. Another rumor suggested that humans were experimenting with new technologies that could reshape battles and diplomacy alike. Traders exchanged gossip, ambassadors whispered in private corners, and even the most confident species began to feel a quiet unease. The Deathworlders were always underestimated, but now even the whispers carried a note of caution. Despite all the rumors and speculation, humans continued their daily routines as if nothing had changed. On Earth, cities thrived, science laboratories buzzed with activity, And people lived their lives with the same mix of curiosity and determination they always had. Children learned to adapt to harsh conditions. Workers explored new technologies, and explorers prepared for missions into unknown regions of space. All of this happened quietly, without any announcement or display of force. Humans didn't need to show their strength, yet they had patience, and they had a plan. Across the galaxy, other species observed, puzzled. They had grown used to predicting human behavior based on history, but now their predictions were failing. Ships that were once simple and easily understood moved differently, showing unexpected speed or coordination. Trade patterns shifted subtly, as humans seemed to stockpile or distribute resources in ways that hinted at larger strategies. Even the smallest details, like changes in communication schedules, were noticed by species who monitored them closely. Everyone realized that something important was happening, but no one could say what. And then the whispers turned to serious concern. A few daring leaders admitted in private that humans might not be as peaceful as they had thought. They didn't claim humans were violent or aggressive, only that humans were unpredictable and patience could be dangerous. Species that relied on treaties and diplomacy began to watch human systems more closely, scanning for any hint of an unusual movement, a secret launch, or a sudden change in posture. Every council meeting carried a quiet tension, as if every representative remembered a story of a species that underestimated the Deathworlders and had lived to regret it. The story of humans in that period spread across the galaxy like a quiet, growing wave. It wasn't an open warning. It wasn't an attack. It was the sense that something in the behavior of humanity was changing. Other species could feel it in meetings, in observations, and in reports from spies who returned from Earth. And yet, despite all this attention, humans continued their lives calmly. They maintained their cities, nurtured their people, explored new frontiers, and prepared their fleets. They never flaunted, never threatened, and never gave a hint of what would come next. And that is what made it so powerful. The Deathworlders were preparing, but no one could see it clearly. Every observer, every council member, every trader felt the tension, but it was invisible. Humans were patient, intelligent, and methodical. They did not rush, and they did not announce their plans. The galaxy was left guessing, watching, and wondering, because something was coming. Something that would finally show every species what humans had really been capable of all along. It was the calm before a storm, but unlike any storm the galaxy had ever seen. Other species still expected humans to play by the old rules, to negotiate first and hold back strength. They didn't yet understand that humans were quietly preparing for a moment when they would no longer hold back. And so the stage was set. The story of that era, now whispered in every corner of space, began not with fire or destruction, but with subtle changes, quiet observation, and the growing realization that the Deathworlders were not what the galaxy thought they were. For the first time, humans were showing that patience and calm could be just as powerful as fleets and weapons. Every species was beginning to notice that something about Earth and its people had changed, and no one was ready to see what would happen next. After the subtle changes in human behavior became noticeable, the galaxy started paying more attention. For years, humans had been seen as calm, cooperative, and predictable. They were respected for their ability to survive in harsh conditions on Earth and admired for their creativity and problem-solving. But now, other species began to sense a shift. Humans were no longer simply cooperative. They were cautious, calculating, and careful with every word and action. It was as if they were watching, learning, and planning something quietly. Ambassadors and diplomats from countless worlds noticed these small changes first. In council chambers where humans once spoke freely and cheerfully, their tone became measured. They answered questions politely, but avoided revealing too much. When asked about trade agreements, humans spoke about possibilities instead of promises. When asked about fleet deployments, they provided vague answers, often repeating that plans were under review. Other species whispered to each other, puzzled by this unusual shift. Humans had always been open and predictable, but now their behavior was full of caution and subtle warning signs. Traders and merchants also felt the change. For years, human trade ships had moved through interstellar routes with steady efficiency, carrying resources fairly and on time. But now, humans began adjusting their schedules without notice, sending shipments to new destinations, and holding back some of their most valuable goods. These changes were small, almost unnoticeable if you didn't pay attention. But those who observed closely realized that humans were organizing something far beyond ordinary trade. It wasn't aggression, but it was preparation. Scientists visiting Earth for research noticed that humans were focused on internal work. Labs were busier than ever, and new projects were underway in secret. Reports mentioned new energy systems, advanced transportation methods, and fleet designs that seemed impossible by standard galactic science. But humans never showed off these discoveries. They worked quietly, with their teams focused on innovation, improvement, and understanding. Visitors left Earth impressed, but also puzzled. There was a sense that humans were preparing for something, though no one knew what it was. Even the younger generations of humans were part of this subtle change. Students, explorers, and apprentices were learning faster, thinking more strategically, and working in ways that combined intelligence, creativity, and adaptability. Every lesson, every experiment, every small mission on Earth or nearby systems seemed to prepare humans for challenges they were not yet willing to reveal. Other species who studied human development were both impressed and cautious. The humans seemed ordinary on the surface, but their growth in knowledge, skills, and coordination was extraordinary. Meanwhile, other species began to discuss the matter in private. Some council members admitted that humans might be more dangerous than they had assumed. Not violent or aggressive, they clarified, but patient, intelligent, and capable of planning far ahead. Species that had always relied on the predictability of human behavior started reviewing their previous interactions with humans, realizing that they had never fully understood them. For the first time, a quiet concern spread. What if humans were capable of more than anyone thought? Stories began circulating among trading hubs, research stations, and embassies. One story told of a human fleet moving silently near a distant system, observing everything with unmatched precision. Another described scientists developing technologies that could change navigation, communications, and fleet coordination. Some of these reports were true, some exaggerated, but all carried the same message. Humans were preparing. Every species paying attention noticed it, and all began to wonder about the purpose. Despite this growing attention, humans did not act in a way that threatened anyone. Their fleets were not attacking, their councils still attended diplomatic meetings, and their trade networks continued. It was a strange mixed quiet preparation without aggression. But that was exactly what made humans unpredictable. They were not aggressive. They were cautious, intelligent, and patient. Other species had become used to reading human behavior, but now the patterns were changing. Predictability had vanished. As months passed, the subtle signs of preparation became more noticeable. Humans started securing critical supply routes, ensuring their fleets could move quickly if needed. They conducted drills that were more efficient and synchronized than anyone else had ever seen. Communication protocols were updated, but only humans could understand them fully. Their coordination improved in ways that made even advanced alien observers wonder. What exactly were the humans preparing for? It wasn't just technology or fleets that changed. Humans themselves adapted. Physical training, mental exercises, and education were all designed to increase resilience and problem-solving abilities. Every mission into space became a learning opportunity, every challenge on Earth a test of skill and adaptability. Humans were preparing not only machines, but also themselves. They were growing stronger in ways that other species could not measure, and yet the galaxy still underestimated them. Most species assumed humans would follow the old rules: negotiate, trade fairly, avoid conflict unless forced, and never show true strength unless necessary. But humans were no longer following the same pattern. They had learned patience over centuries of living on a harsh planet, and now that patience was becoming a powerful advantage. Observers noticed that humans were quiet, but not passive. They were watching, learning, and preparing strategies far beyond anything expected. The tension grew quietly. Council members whispered about human capabilities. Scientists debated theories of hidden technologies. Traders speculated about supply networks. Everyone felt a shift in the air, even if nothing overtly happened. It was a subtle tension, the kind that made everyone cautious without anyone fully understanding why. Humans were still polite, still cooperative, but something had changed deep in their approach to life, strategy, and planning. Finally, some of the braver leaders began to admit that humans might not be the species to underestimate. They did not say humans were dangerous. They said they were unpredictable, patient, and methodical. And patience, they realized, could be just as powerful as weapons. Slowly, quietly, the galaxy began to recognize that the humans were no longer the same as before. They had learned, adapted, and prepared for a moment that no one else could see coming. From Earth to distant systems, humans continued their daily lives, appearing ordinary to anyone passing by. Children learned and played, workers innovated, and explorers ventured into new systems. And yet every action, every experiment, every quiet mission contributed to a growing network of preparation. Humans were patient, careful, and relentless in their pursuit of readiness. They did not boast, and they did not threaten. They simply grew stronger and smarter every day. The other species could sense this, even if they could not understand it. They felt the change in trade patterns, council behavior, and fleet movements. They noticed the precision and coordination of humans, the speed with which they adapted, and the quiet determination that seemed to radiate from Earth. Humans were preparing, but not in a way anyone could confront or challenge. They were readying themselves for a future no one could predict. By the end of this period, the whispers in the galaxy had grown louder. Observers warned each other to pay attention to humans. Traders planned more carefully. Diplomats reviewed every past interaction. Scientists tried desperately to uncover hidden technologies. Everyone felt it. The humans were preparing for something, and no one knew exactly what it would be. And that was the power of the Deathworlders. They were patient, calm, and cautious, but their preparation was unstoppable. Every small adjustment, every hidden technology, every strategic change built a foundation for what was to come. Other species could sense it, but they had no way to see the full picture. Humans were quiet, intelligent, and relentless. They did not act impulsively, but they were readying themselves for a future in which they would no longer be underestimated. This quiet shift, this careful, human-centric preparation, was the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The galaxy was still unaware of the full scope of human capability. The Deathworlders were still underestimated by many. And yet, the first seeds of recognition had been planted. Humans were growing, preparing, and watching. And the galaxy would soon realize that they had been patient for a reason no one yet fully understood. For years, the galaxy had watched humans quietly grow, adapt, and prepare. They had been patient, precise, and cautious. Other species noticed subtle shifts in human behavior, but could not understand the full picture. Diplomats whispered in council chambers. Traders shared rumors in spaceports. And scientists tried to decode every signal from Earth. And then, one day, an event occurred that would force humans to finally take a step that every species had been waiting for. Though no one knew it, the trigger was small, almost accidental. It began with a minor border incident in a remote system, far from Earth. A faction of powerful aliens had expanded into a territory the humans had quietly surveyed for decades. This faction didn't intend to attack humans. They simply miscalculated, ignoring established agreements and putting nearby systems at risk. Observers from other species watched carefully, waiting to see how humans would react. For centuries, humans had always responded to conflict with negotiation, dialogue, and compromise. No one doubted that this situation would be the same, but the humans were silent. For the first time in galactic memory, they did not rush to send envoys, demand explanations, or make diplomatic statements. They did not deploy fleets immediately. They did not argue or protest publicly. Instead, humans withdrew from some council meetings and canceled joint missions that had involved the region. Other species, used to seeing humans mediate and negotiate, were puzzled. Some even began to feel uneasy. What was happening? Why were humans doing nothing visible in response to a clear challenge? The silence was deliberate. Humans had learned the value of observation and patience. They knew that acting impulsively would be expected, and expected behavior could be exploited. By withdrawing, humans created uncertainty. They allowed the other species to speculate, to worry, and to pay attention. It was not aggression, but it was control of the narrative. The galaxy began to sense that the Deathworlders were not following the rules anyone had assumed. At the same time, humans increased their preparations quietly. Fleet drills became more precise, resources were repositioned to strategic locations, and new technologies were tested in simulations. Scientists worked in secret, engineers built and refined systems, and students trained in advanced problem-solving scenarios. Every action was small, subtle, and almost invisible, but together, these actions formed a foundation for what humans were planning next. Other species noticed bits and pieces, but could not piece them together. Humans had mastered the art of preparation without display, of readiness without alarm. Rumors began spreading across distant systems. Traders reported seeing human fleets moving silently along hidden routes. Scientists suggested humans had developed new energy systems capable of unprecedented efficiency. Diplomats whispered about unusual communication patterns. And yet, humans made no announcements, gave no speeches, and showed no signs of aggression. The galaxy could feel tension, but it did not know why. For the first time, humans seemed unpredictable, patient, and entirely in control. The minor border incident continued to unfold. The alien faction believed humans would respond, as they always had. They expected diplomatic protests or perhaps a small show of force. Instead, humans remained quiet, observing. Their silence made other species nervous. Ships were scanned, signals were intercepted, but nothing revealed human intent. Every species that had previously underestimated humans began to realize that the Deathworlders were different now. They were not just strong, they were patient, intelligent, and strategic in ways no one had fully appreciated. Inside Earth's command centers, humans prepared silently. Officers coordinated with precision, engineers refined their designs, and researchers calculated outcomes for countless scenarios. Every possible response to the border incident was considered, every potential ripple in the galaxy mapped. Humans were readying themselves not for revenge, not for aggression, but for action that would make their capabilities clear without unnecessary harm. They had waited patiently for the right moment to show the galaxy what they could do. And then, as other species debated and guessed, humans acted, but not in the way anyone expected. Their move was calculated, precise, and deliberate. They did not attack. They did not threaten. Instead, humans demonstrated their abilities in a controlled, undeniable way. Fleets were moved into strategic positions, not to fight, but to display coordination, speed, and technological sophistication. Systems that could have been targets for aggression were carefully monitored and controlled using new non-lethal technologies that disabled equipment without harming anyone. Ships that tried to challenge humans suddenly found themselves immobilized or unable to communicate. It was a display that shocked every observer, even those who had long assumed humans were dangerous. The galaxy realized for the first time that humans had not been weak or passive. They had been patient and deliberate. For decades, humans had prepared for challenges like this, while remaining cooperative and calm in every interaction. Every species that had underestimated humans now saw that they had been wrong. Humans were intelligent, adaptive, and capable of action that no one had expected. This was a turning point, a moment that would be remembered for generations. Humans had taken the first decisive step toward showing the galaxy their true strength. Even after this action, humans did not boast. They returned to council meetings, continued trade, and maintained diplomacy. But now, there was a difference. Other species treated humans with caution and respect, recognizing that the Deathworlders were no longer predictable in the ways they had once thought. Humans had demonstrated power without aggression, strategy without confrontation, and strength without fear. It was a lesson that the galaxy would not forget. Reports from the border incident traveled far and wide. Scientists, diplomats, and traders shared stories of the human display. Every account emphasized the precision, patience, and intelligence of the humans. Other species began to review all their past interactions with humans, realizing how much they had underestimated them. The subtle patience and quiet preparation that had defined human behavior were now understood as deliberate strategy. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, but now that was no longer possible. And yet, humans themselves remained calm. They did not celebrate, and they did not provoke. They had acted because the situation demanded it, because preparation and patience had reached their natural conclusion. The Deathworlders had shown the galaxy what patience, intelligence, and careful planning could achieve. Their actions were measured, controlled, and clear. Humans were capable of more than anyone had imagined. And patience had been their greatest advantage. As the event settled into history, council members, scientists, and traders began to teach this lesson to younger generations. Stories of the border incident became a reminder of human capability. They were told not as tales of violence, but as stories of intelligence, preparation, and patience. Humans had not sought conflict, but they had shown that they would act decisively when the time was right. Every species began to reconsider their approach to humans, understanding that the Deathworlders were patient, intelligent, and capable of strategic action far beyond what had been expected. In quiet ways, Earth returned to its routines. Children continued learning, workers continued building, and explorers continued venturing into new systems. The galaxy could feel the tension easing, but the respect for humans had changed forever. No longer underestimated, humans were now a species that every other civilization would watch carefully. They were intelligent, patient, and methodical. They had acted when the situation demanded it, without harming others, and had shown the galaxy that patience could be a weapon just as powerful as any fleet or technology. By the end of this period, it was clear the galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. The border incident had forced the Deathworlders to show their capabilities, and in doing so, they had taught a lesson that would be remembered for centuries. Every observer, every diplomat, every scientist realized the same truth. Humans were patient, intelligent, and prepared, and their time to act would come when it was right, not when the galaxy expected. And so, the story of Part 3 ends with a quiet but decisive turning point. Humans had faced a challenge, remained patient, and acted in a way that revealed their true capabilities. The galaxy watched, learned, and began to respect the Deathworlders for the first time. They had prepared for decades, and now the first step of their decisive moment had arrived. The stage was set for even greater actions in the future, actions that would forever change the way the galaxy viewed humanity. After the border incident, humans did something the galaxy had never seen before. For centuries, other species had assumed that humans would always play fair, always hold back, and never reveal the full extent of their capabilities. They had watched humans trade, negotiate, and cooperate peacefully while quietly observing and preparing. But now, the Deathworlders decided it was time to stop holding back. They chose a path that would change how every species viewed them, not through violence, but through a display of intelligence, skill, and precise control. The humans' first move was deliberate. Their fleets were deployed, but not for attack. Ships moved with precision across critical regions, demonstrating speed, coordination, and capability that far exceeded any expectations. Observers from other species scrambled to keep up. Every fleet that tried to challenge human movements was met not with destruction, but with systems temporarily disabled. Communications failed, engines stopped, and navigational systems went offline, but no one was harmed. Humans had discovered ways to neutralize potential threats without violence, a combination of technology and strategy that left the galaxy in awe. It was a controlled demonstration, not a battle. Humans carefully chose where and how to show their capabilities, ensuring that every observer understood the message. They were powerful, intelligent, and methodical, and they could no longer be underestimated. Fleet commanders from other species watched in disbelief as human ships coordinated flawlessly, moving like a single organism with perfect timing. Every maneuver, every calculation, every display of strength was precise and intentional. No one had ever seen such synchronization before. Meanwhile, humans continued to maintain diplomacy. Their ambassadors attended councils and trade negotiations as usual, speaking politely and offering cooperation. They did not demand respect or recognition. They allowed their actions to speak for themselves. This combination of calm diplomacy and overwhelming capability created confusion, awe, and respect in equal measure. Other species struggled to understand how humans could remain peaceful and cooperative while simultaneously demonstrating such extraordinary strength. Scientists and strategists across the galaxy began analyzing what had happened. They realized that humans had been preparing for decades in ways that were invisible until now. Every fleet movement, every technological upgrade, every subtle adjustment in trade and communication had been part of a larger plan. The humans had never rushed, never revealed their full power, but they had quietly built a network of capabilities that could act decisively when needed. Other species were forced to confront the truth. Humans were far more capable than anyone had imagined. The display extended beyond just fleets and technology. Humans had developed advanced systems for logistics, coordination, and communication that made their operations faster and more efficient than any other civilization. Ships could respond to changing conditions instantly, repair themselves autonomously, and adapt to threats without human intervention. Humans had built intelligence networks that monitored the galaxy silently, ensuring they always had accurate information before making decisions. This level of preparation was unprecedented. Yet, humans still did not harm anyone. This was not aggression, it was demonstration. Other species had expected confrontation, fear, or violence, but humans had found a way to make their point without hurting anyone. Systems were disabled, equipment was neutralized, but all ships and life were unharmed. It was a form of controlled power that no one had seen before. Every observer understood the message clearly. Humans were capable of defending themselves, controlling situations, and acting decisively, but they chose not to destroy unless absolutely necessary. As the weeks passed, humans continued to demonstrate their capabilities in different regions. Each display was carefully timed and calculated. The galaxy began to notice patterns. Humans acted in ways that maximized effectiveness while minimizing risk. Fleets could cover multiple systems simultaneously. Resource distribution was optimized for any scenario, and communications allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. The Deathworlders were no longer just another intelligent species. They were a civilization that had perfected preparation, strategy, and control. Every council meeting after the demonstrations carried a new level of respect for humans. Other species approached negotiations cautiously, fully aware of the technological and strategic advantage that humans now openly displayed. The old assumptions that humans were fair but weak, cooperative but limited, were gone. Humans had stopped playing clean in the sense that they would no longer be underestimated. They had not changed their nature, but they had changed how the galaxy perceived them. Traders and explorers told stories of the demonstrations across spaceports and research stations. Scientists published analyses of human coordination and efficiency. Ambassadors recounted the calm, deliberate actions of human fleets. These stories spread quickly, reinforcing the understanding that humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. The galaxy began to approach humans with caution, not fear, but with respect and recognition of their intelligence, patience, and capability. Humans themselves remained focused on their original goals. They did not seek to dominate, control, or punish. Their intention was clear. They would no longer be underestimated. They had acted decisively to demonstrate that patience, preparation, and intelligence were as powerful as any weapon or fleet. And in doing so, they had created a shift in the galaxy's perception that would last for generations. The turning point was not a single moment, but a series of carefully orchestrated actions. Each fleet maneuver, each technological demonstration, each silent monitoring of the galaxy was a piece of a larger strategy. Humans had waited for the right time, observed for decades, and acted with precision. Other species were forced to acknowledge that they had misjudged humans for too long. The Deathworlders were not reckless or violent. They were intelligent, adaptable, and deliberate in ways that few could comprehend. As the displays continued, humans also strengthened their alliances quietly. Species that had once doubted them began to seek cooperation, trade, and knowledge exchange. Humans welcomed these overtures, sharing technology, advice, and strategic insight selectively. They reinforced relationships that valued intelligence, collaboration, and fairness while maintaining their independence and autonomy. Other civilizations began to understand that humans were not simply fighters. They were problem solvers, strategists, and patient planners. Meanwhile, the galaxy's perception of humans shifted permanently. Legends began to form, and stories were told of the day humans stopped holding back, not as tales of conquest, but as lessons in intelligence, patience, and controlled power. Young species were taught about the Deathworlders' capability to act decisively without aggression. Scholars debated human strategies in classrooms and research halls. Even the most skeptical species began to treat humans with respect, understanding that underestimating them was a mistake that could never be repeated. By the end of this period, it was clear that humans had changed the balance of perception in the galaxy. They had not harmed others, started wars, or sought domination. They had simply demonstrated their full capability, showing that patience, preparation, and intelligence could achieve results as effectively as any weapon. Other species now knew that humans were not to be underestimated. They were methodical, deliberate, and capable of actions that were impossible to predict fully. Humans returned to their routines, as they always had. Earth remained vibrant, with people learning, exploring, and innovating. The galaxy, however, was no longer the same. Ships moved differently, diplomats negotiated more carefully, and scientists studied human technology and strategy with new respect. The Deathworlders had stopped playing clean. not by attacking or harming, but by revealing their potential and showing the galaxy what could happen if their patience and intelligence were ignored. Not the lesson was simple, but powerful. Patience and preparation, combined with intelligence and control, could be more effective than aggression. Humans had shown that they could act decisively when necessary, and they had done so without causing harm. The galaxy had learned to respect, watch, and reconsider every assumption about the Deathworlders. And every species knew that the human's patience was not weakness, it was the most dangerous strength of all. From this moment onward, the stage was set for the next chapter of human history. The Deathworlders had revealed their capabilities, changed perceptions, and established their presence as a force to be recognized. The galaxy would never again see them as ordinary or predictable. They had stopped playing clean in the sense that they would no longer allow underestimation, and every species would remember that lesson for generations. After humans had shown their capabilities in the galaxy, the response from other species was immediate yet subtle. No one attacked, no one protested, but everywhere, from council halls to trading stations, the realization spread. Humans were far more capable than anyone had believed. This was not about fear, it was about respect and recognition. Species that had once underestimated the Deathworlders now saw them with a new perspective. They realized that humans had played fair for too long, cooperating and negotiating while quietly preparing and improving themselves. Ambassadors from multiple systems began private consultations to discuss how humans had achieved what seemed impossible. They reviewed every interaction, every trade, every fleet movement, and every communication. Slowly, it became clear that the humans had been patient for decades, watching and learning, building strength in ways that were invisible to others. This patience was not weakness. It was intelligence. It was strategy. Every species began to understand that humans had deliberately held back, allowing their rivals and allies alike to underestimate them, while quietly preparing for a moment when they could demonstrate their true abilities. Traders and merchants also noticed the change. They reported shifts in supply lines, adjustments in trade patterns, and fleets that seemed to move faster and more efficiently than ever before. Human ships were no longer just vessels of commerce or exploration. They had become examples of precision, organization, and strategic thought. The galaxy began to see that humans had mastered the art of control without aggression. They could act decisively when necessary, but they chose to show restraint, intelligence, and careful planning. At council meetings, discussions about humans became frequent. Representatives from other species debated how a civilization so seemingly ordinary could achieve such mastery. They analyzed every detail, from fleet formations to communication protocols, and tried to understand how humans had integrated technology, strategy, and planning into every aspect of their operations. Scholars and diplomats agreed that humans were not aggressive by nature. They were intelligent, patient, and deliberate. But this intelligence, combined with patience and preparation, gave humans an advantage that no one had seen before. Meanwhile, humans continued to act with calm, quiet confidence. They returned to councils, trade negotiations, and diplomatic missions as before, showing no arrogance or desire to dominate. But every action, every decision, carried the weight of their recent demonstration. Other species could no longer treat humans as predictable or ordinary. Their movements, their strategies, and even their conversations reflected an understanding that humans were capable of far more than anyone had realized. This was the moment when humans truly gained respect across the galaxy, not through force, but through careful, controlled demonstration of their potential. Scientists and researchers began to share findings widely. They studied the human fleet's efficiency, the technology that allowed rapid coordination, and the strategies that ensured maximum effectiveness with minimum risk. They marveled at how humans had combined physical capability, technology, and intelligence into a system that was both powerful and non-threatening. Other species began to understand that humans had been preparing for a future they did not yet fully see. Every subtle movement, every small improvement, and every quiet adjustment had been part of a long-term plan that was now unfolding in front of the galaxy. This realization also reached military strategists. Many had assumed that humans were only capable of defensive tactics and slow adaptation. But after seeing the precision of human operations, the speed of coordination, and the ability to act decisively without aggression, even the most confident commanders began to rethink their strategies. They recognized that humans were not reckless or unpredictable. They were methodical, patient, and capable of responding to any challenge with intelligence and efficiency. This understanding reshaped not just diplomacy, but military planning across multiple systems. Traders and explorers continued to notice human efficiency in practical terms. Supply routes were optimized, fleet maintenance was flawless, and communication systems were advanced beyond expectation. Humans were not aggressive. They did not seek conflict or advantage unfairly. Instead, they applied intelligence and preparation to ensure stability and readiness. Other species had assumed humans were ordinary in comparison, but now they understood that every small action humans had taken over decades had been part of a deliberate strategy to strengthen themselves and demonstrate capability when needed. The impact of this realization spread to every corner of the galaxy. Council members who had previously dismissed human potential began to approach them with caution and respect. Traders sought cooperation rather than exploitation. Scientists requested collaboration, realizing that humans had unique knowledge and skill to share. Diplomats who once assumed humans would always follow predictable patterns now approached every interaction with careful consideration. The galaxy had changed its perception of the Deathworlders, recognizing that they were patient, intelligent, and capable of controlled, decisive action. At the same time, humans themselves continued quietly. Earth remained vibrant, cities grew, and research continued. People lived ordinary lives, learned, explored, and innovated. But beneath this calm surface, humans maintained readiness. They improved fleets, refined technology, and trained generations to be intelligent, adaptive, and strategic. Every step humans took was purposeful, aimed at maintaining their advantage while remaining cooperative and fair. Other species could sense this efficiency and intelligence, and it left them both impressed and cautious. This period also reinforced lessons in diplomacy. Other species realized that respect, understanding, and cooperation with humans were essential. Attempts to exploit or underestimate the Deathworlders were no longer viable. Every interaction became a careful negotiation, guided by the knowledge that humans were capable of far more than any species had imagined. This realization transformed the galaxy's approach to communication, trade, and collaboration. Humans were no longer ordinary partners. They were respected, intelligent, and capable collaborators who demanded acknowledgement of their preparation and capability. Stories about humans' capabilities spread quickly. Young students learned about the Deathworlders, patience, intelligence, and strategy. Scholars analyzed how humans combined preparation, observation, and controlled action to achieve results. Traders shared anecdotes about efficient fleets and precise coordination. Diplomats recalled instances of humans acting decisively without aggression, demonstrating power without conflict. Across the galaxy, humans became an example of how intelligence, patience, and strategy could achieve outcomes more effectively than brute force. As this recognition settled, humans continued their daily routines. Children learned and played, workers innovated, explorers journeyed into the stars, and scientists researched. The galaxy watched and adapted, but humans remained calm and unassuming. They had demonstrated their capabilities, reshaped perceptions, and shown that patience and intelligence could be more powerful than aggression. Other species treated humans with caution, respect, and a new understanding that would endure for generations. By the end of this period, the impact was clear. Humans had achieved something remarkable. They had gained the respect of every species in the galaxy without initiating violence or conflict. They had demonstrated capability, intelligence, and preparation in a way that changed perceptions permanently. The Deathworlders were no longer underestimated. They were recognized as strategic, intelligent, and patient beings who acted decisively when necessary. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Humans were not just cooperative or predictable. They were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. Their patience, preparation, and intelligence made them a species that could not be ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. And every species, from traders to diplomats to scientists, understood that this new respect was well earned. This period marked the beginning of a new era. Humans had revealed their capabilities, transformed the galaxy's perception of them, and established themselves as a force to be respected. They had stopped being underestimated not through aggression, but through intelligence, preparation, and controlled action. Every species knew that the Deathworlders were patient, capable, and strategic. Their restraint had been a choice, and their action had been deliberate. From that moment onward, humans would be remembered as a species that taught the galaxy a powerful lesson. Patience and intelligence could be more effective than force, and preparation could achieve results no one expected. After decades of preparation, patience, and subtle demonstration, humans reached a point where the galaxy fully recognized their strength. It wasn't an explosive conquest or a violent takeover. It was the quiet, deliberate result of a civilization that had mastered intelligence, strategy, and restraint. The Deathworlders had stopped being underestimated, and now every species across countless systems treated them with respect, caution, and curiosity. The turning point came with coordinated actions across multiple regions. Human fleets moved with precision, not to attack, but to stabilize areas that were vulnerable or mismanaged. Supply lines were optimized to prevent shortages. Communication networks were strengthened to prevent misunderstandings. And emerging conflicts were quietly neutralized using technology that disabled systems without harm. Every demonstration reinforced the same lesson. Humans could act decisively and strategically, but they chose to minimize damage. While maintaining control, other species began to understand that humans had not acted impulsively or aggressively. They had acted intelligently. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, viewed as cooperative but limited. Yet the Deathworlders had patiently built networks of knowledge, fleets, technology, and trained individuals capable of responding to any challenge. They had prepared for decades, waiting for the right time to reveal their capabilities. And now the galaxy finally saw what humans were capable of. Diplomats and council members were stunned by the efficiency and subtlety of human actions. Where other species relied on brute strength or overt threats, humans relied on intelligence, adaptability, and observation. Every action was calculated to achieve maximum effect with minimal risk. Ships coordinated like a single organism. Fleets adapted instantly to changing conditions. And humans had perfected strategies that combined diplomacy, trade, and technology into one seamless approach. This was a level of sophistication that other species had never encountered. The quiet demonstrations of power were matched by human humility. Even after proving their capabilities, humans continued trade, exploration, and diplomacy as before. They did not boast or issue threats. Their message was clear. We are capable, we are patient, and we act with intelligence. Respect us, but do not fear us unnecessarily. This approach surprised many species who expected power to be followed by dominance. Instead, humans offered partnership, guidance, and controlled influence. Showing that strength and cooperation could coexist, scientists and strategists across the galaxy studied human methods extensively. They realized that humans had integrated preparation into every aspect of their civilization. Education, technology, logistics, communication, and fleet coordination were all designed to optimize efficiency, adaptability, and readiness. Humans had created a civilization that could respond to unforeseen challenges with speed and intelligence, making them formidable without aggression. It was not brute force, it was strategy, perfected over centuries. Traders and explorers reported on the subtle but undeniable impact of human actions. Supply chains became more reliable, distant systems received assistance before crises escalated, and communication networks facilitated smoother interactions across species. Humans had created a model of influence that did not rely on intimidation, yet ensured stability and respect. Other civilizations were forced to reconsider their approach to cooperation with humans, recognizing that they were engaging with a species that combined intelligence, patience, and capability in a unique way. Young species learned the lessons of human strategy. Stories spread of the Deathworlders' restraint, intelligence, and careful preparation. Scholars analyzed fleet coordination, technological innovation, and diplomatic skill. Leaders taught that humans acted decisively when necessary, but always with foresight and calculation. These lessons inspired future generations to understand the value of patience, intelligence, and strategic thinking, not just brute force or immediate action. Humans became an example of what a civilization could achieve through careful planning, adaptability, and observation. The galaxy also realized that humans had created systems to protect life while maintaining control. Where other species might escalate conflicts unnecessarily, humans had used technology and strategy to prevent harm, stabilize regions, and avoid destruction. This approach won them allies and partners, further strengthening their position without aggression. Humans demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and foresight could achieve stability and influence far more effectively than reckless action. Even as humans acted across multiple systems, they remained calm and grounded. Life on Earth continued as it had for centuries. Education, exploration, and innovation thrived. Citizens trained, learned, and innovated, but always with awareness of their broader responsibilities. Every fleet deployment, technological experiment, and diplomatic negotiation was done with intelligence, foresight, and respect for others. The galaxy noticed this consistency, and it reinforced the perception that humans were deliberate, strategic, and reliable. By the end of this period, humans had permanently altered the galaxy's perception of them. They were no longer underestimated. They were seen as patient, intelligent, and capable of achieving results without unnecessary conflict. They had stopped playing clean, not by attacking or harming, but by demonstrating their full potential. Every action, every decision, and every calculated display of capability reminded the galaxy that humans could act decisively when needed. The influence of humans extended beyond fleets and technology. Their approach to problem-solving, diplomacy, and cooperation became a model for other species. Council members studied human strategies, scientists adapted their methods, and traders optimized their practices. Humans had shown that intelligence, patience, and preparation could influence the galaxy without destruction or fear. Their ability to combine strategy with ethics made them unique, and other species began to adapt their behavior in response to human example. Stories of human restraint and strategy were passed down for generations. Children learned about the Deathworlders' ability to observe, prepare, and act with precision. Scholars documented the integration of intelligence, patience, and strategic thinking in human civilization. Traders and diplomats used humans as a benchmark for cooperation and efficiency. Across the galaxy, humans became a symbol of deliberate power and intelligent strategy, a species whose patience and foresight had earned the respect of every civilization. Even as humans cemented their reputation, they continued to act with care and humility. They did not dominate or exploit. They offered partnership, knowledge, and guidance to those who approached with respect. Their actions demonstrated that true strength lay in patience, observation, and strategic decision-making, rather than brute force or aggression. Every move reinforced the understanding that humans were not just capable, they were intelligent. Deliberate and ethical in their use of power. By the conclusion of this era, humans had achieved something remarkable. They had demonstrated their capabilities without violence, gained the respect of the galaxy, and set a precedent for strategic restraint. The Deathworlders had stopped being underestimated, and every species understood that patience, intelligence, and preparation were as powerful as any fleet or weapon. Humans had transformed the galaxy's understanding of strength, influence, and strategy. In quiet ways, Earth continued its growth. People learned, explored, and innovated. But the galaxy now watched with recognition and respect, aware that the Deathworlders were capable of extraordinary action when necessary. Humans had taught a lesson that would be remembered for generations. True power lies in patience, intelligence, and the careful use of capability. The story of the Deathworlders' rise to recognition ended not with destruction or conquest, but with understanding. Humans had stopped playing clean, not by harming or dominating, but by revealing the full measure of their preparation, strategy, and intelligence. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate the patient, the intelligent, or the prepared. Humanity had earned its place as a respected, strategic, and extraordinary civilization, and its influence would be felt for generations to come.